Hi, I'm Jen Silverian, and welcome to the very first episode of Small Business Speak. Small Business Speaks, where we give a voice to entrepreneurs and small business owners within our community to show them that we care about them and we're rooting for their success. My first guest is Brandi Broadley, who is a top producing agent with the group here in Northern Colorado. Hi, Brandi. Ooh, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jen.
You bet. So I think it's super fitting that you're the first guest on the show because you're actually the inspiration for Small Business Speaks. And I'll tell you why. You host a book club, and it happens to have a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners as its members. And our first book club, which became a Zoom call, was the day that Governor Polis announced shutting down of non-essential businesses and shelter in place. And it was a raw day for many of us. We were super concerned about the impact that it would have on our business. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I get on like a Zoom happy hour, people will talk about coronavirus, but more times than not, they want to talk about anything but. But you in this book club made a point of asking each of us individually how business was going. And that was really meaningful to me. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this series, Small Business Speaks, to just to give a voice and have small business owners talk about what's going on. So with that, let's talk about you. And we have to start with your credentials because they're super impressive. You started in real estate in 2014. And in your first year, you had a goal of selling 6 homes. You actually sold 18.
I did.
And you were recognized by the Fort Collins Board of Realtors as the Rookie of the Year, by your employer, Coldwell Banker, as a rising star, and also by BizWest here in Colorado as a one of the top 40 under 40. So why was that meaningful to you?
To me, it was meaningful because I had left a job in social work where I had a salary, and I got into a sales role, and I had never been in sales before. And it was really scary to make that jump. And the real estate market hadn't totally boomed yet here in Northern Colorado. We were right on the cusp of starting to incline there on sales. And so I didn't really know what to expect in my first year. I made a sales goal of 6 homes because that's what, to me, would replace the salary I had left. I came up with 6 houses not knowing all the expenses that are involved when you're in real estate. So I didn't realize how expensive it was to be in this business. So the 6 houses was a little bit of an underestimate. But what those awards meant to me was that I was going to make it, and that I was going to be able to pay my bills, and that I was going to not lose my house. So that's why those awards meant so much to me in that first year.
I want to come back to what that first year looked like because I bet you were working around the clock. But first, let's pull back and go to, you mentioned you started in social services.
Mm-hmm.
So what attracted you to that particular line of work, and what kinds of things did you do? I saw that you worked for Foothills Gateway here in town, which provides services to 2,500 families with intellectual and developmental challenges. So that job also sounds pretty intense. Tell me more about that.
Yes. And so, well, I started with that company, Foothills Gateway, in 2005 when I was a junior at CSU. So I was majoring in psychology. I majored in psychology, and I have a degree in psychology from Colorado State University. And I saw a job posting for a residential counselor. And what that job was I would be working in group homes with adults with intellectual and cognitive disabilities, helping them with daily life activities. Like I would cook for them, I would take them out on outings, I would help them manage their money. I would help them bathe and shower, like pretty much everything, depending on the level of independence and care that they need or needed. So I did that job until I graduated from CSU. And then immediately after I graduated, I got a house manager position where I was in charge of taking them on their medical appointments and buying groceries for the group homes, a little bit more in depth with managing their finances. And I was in that house manager role for about oh gosh, not even a year, like maybe 6 months. And then I got a supervisor position. And so I was in that supervisor role from 2005 until 2013. So, or sorry, 2007 to 2013 for 6 years in that
Okay,
role.
how did you get involved in that kind of work? What attracted you to social services?
Well, I wasn't majoring in social work, but the title residential counselor, I was like, oh, that kind of aligns with what I'm going to school for from a psychology standpoint. And I went to go apply for an internship. And I realized that Foothills Gateway was listed as one of my internships. And so when I was talking to one of my professors, they said, why don't you just work there and get paid? And so I ended up working full-time my senior year of college. I worked there full-time as a full-time residential counselor. And then so that I at least was earning, I was still working full-time, but I was finishing my degree. And then I just kind of stayed with the company because I love the company so much.
You're making me feel like a slouch. That's really awesome.
And I still love the company. So I'm very much still a part of, because I couldn't totally break away because I still really, their work really means a lot to me. And so I'm still a host and provider. So it's like foster care, but for adults that can't live on their own. And then I'm also a director on the foundation board.
That's amazing. Well, let's jump forward to your first year in real estate, to the spring of 2014. What made you want to change careers, and did you consider anything else apart from real estate?
So while I love Foothills Gateway, there were times being in the residential department that were very challenging because we didn't operate like the day center does, where they have 9 to 5 hours, where they have day programs for people to go in. We were 24/7, round the clock. And we went through periods of time in that 6 years that I was a supervisor where we were severely understaffed. Our staff were underpaid. We had a ton of turnover. And there was times where I did apply for other jobs. So I also teach group fitness on the side, and I saw like a group fitness manager position come open at a local health club, and I applied for that job twice and I didn't get it. I also applied for a supervisor position with another local company, a sanitation company local in town that seemed like it had similar job qualifications, and I didn't get even an interview for that. And so I was really discouraged to even look outside at applying at any other kind of jobs. And what the big turning point for me to change careers was after I had my daughter. She was born in August of 2013. I went back to work and I worked for about another 6 months. And then when she was 6 months old, I was realizing I was doing like 3 or 4 different jobs, wearing 3 different hats within that job, and I was never home. And I was like, by the time she's 3 or 4, like I'm not going to get to do anything with her. I'll barely get to see her because I'm working 70, 80 hours a week. Like I just felt like I needed to make a change so that I could be more in control of my schedule. Now, there are definitely times that I work just as much, if not more, in real
Right.
estate, but I have a level of control over saying yes or no and how I structure my day so that I do get to spend time with her.
Okay. So your first year, 18 homes.
Yeah.
I I'm curious how, because real estate is so competitive. I think I was reading that each person generally knows 10 different realtors. So why do you think your customers choose to work with you?
Oh, that's a good question. My first year, several of my clients came from Foothills Gateway, other coworkers I had at the time that knew me and knew my work ethic and trusted me. So that's the kind of the general rule in real estate. For someone to choose you over someone else, they have to know you, like you, and trust you. And so I think I checked those boxes for the people that I used to work with at Foothills Gateway. I also had family transactions that helped. So out of those 18, I think 2 were family transactions. One of them was a family transaction of my aunt and uncle's house, and they were about to list with another agent right when I was getting licensed, and I begged and pleaded and asked 3 different times, as well as my mom was like, please give her the opportunity. And so I still had to work to get that one, even though it was a family transaction. And so
The friends and family connections are so important when you're getting started. Um, um, so was that your first sale?
no. So my first sale was a guy that I did used to work with at Foothills Gateway. So I had gone into the office that I used to work in to pick up a check or something, paperwork or something, because I was still a host home provider. And he said, hey, Brandi. And it was a guy that I actually hired. So that's just kind of funny how that turns around. But I had hired him for his position. And he said, hey, we're looking for a house. So if you hear of anything. And so I was like, okay. And so I was so excited that was like the first person that mentioned to me that they wanted a house. Well, I went on, at the time, Coldwell Banker did like broker tours of new listings every single week. So I went on this broker tour, and this house wasn't even on the market yet. And I just, knowing the area, I've lived here my whole life, I was like, that's a great deal on that house. So I called him and I said, oh my gosh, this house isn't on the market yet, and it's a great deal. It's coming soon. Do you want to go in and see it? And he's like, sure. So I showed him the house. And then after I showed him his house, he was like, well, my mom's a realtor. And I was like, oh no. What? My first deal. And his mom was actually working her way out of the business. So I represented him 100%. I found him the house. They still own the house. And at the time, that house I sold, it was $225 was the sales price. And within a year, I did their first market analysis, and it was already up to $350 between
Amazing.
1 year, like 120. They already got a good deal on the house, but then with how much we've appreciated here in Colorado, it was just cool to see that be the impact that first sale had. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a real feel-good story.
Yeah.
How about this year? We've had our challenges. So how many homes have you sold? How much volume have you done this year? And how does it compare to your 2019?
Yeah. So right now I've sold 5 homes. So I've closed 5 homes. I have about
Congrats.
another 4, thank you, 4 under contract, and I have 3 listings. That's a little less than I normally do in the springtime, which I attribute to the virus and all the other crazy things that are happening in our world right now. However, I believe strongly, especially in Northern Colorado, we have such a culture to support local businesses, and we usually do pretty well during times of recessions and things like that. So I strongly believe that we'll bounce back. I did set a pretty high goal for myself this year. So
What's
now
your goal?
looking at this high daunting goal. So last year I sold 35 homes.
Oh
So
my
this
gosh.
year I made a goal to sell 40 homes or do 20 million in sales volume. So my last year I was at 16 million, 35 sales. So I bumped it up to 20 million in sales or 40 transactions. I don't care how I reach my goal, whether it's on sides or sales volume. And so right now I'm at 2.5 million in 5 sides. So I have a big goal ahead of me, but I also know that right now, like, I can't show a house right now. Our governor has shut down our state to where I can't even do an in-person showing anymore. And so there is an element that I know is out of my control. So what I'm really focusing on right now is being a resource for people. So I got a call yesterday. Someone was asking me for a good plumber. I am listing a house today. I paid for a video to be done on it so that someone can really see what the house looks like a professional video. So I'm still going to be trying to sell real estate, whether it's on video or FaceTime or whatever we have to do to keep people moving and reaching their goals and getting them to where they want to be. Because these people, for example, are building a brand new house, so they have to sell their house. So
Yeah, I think it's important to note that there are workarounds. We're pursuing ways to get things done so that business doesn't come to a grinding halt and we don't have to wait things out. Gosh, I remember when coronavirus was just a speck that was happening halfway across the world to a small amount of people. And I think that was even December. And it slowly made progress. And then it was isolated cases in the US. Do you remember at what point you thought, wow, could this have an impact on my business?
Yeah, I don't think I was as much worried about my business. Well, the business probably was when the first round of closures for gyms and salons and restaurants and all that, then I was like, oh no. And I was more concerned about the people that I already had under contract closing. I was worried, like, what if they shut down title companies and they can't even go to closing? And those two clients I had under contract, they have since closed in the last couple of weeks. We did drive through, again, adapting. We did drive through closings, but I remember feeling like, um, oh no, what if they can't even move? Because what if they don't have a place to live? Like, it was beyond even just like my business, but oh no, what's going to happen to their livelihood, because they have to be out of their rental, and they're planning on, both of them are renting. So that's where I really was like, oh no, what if everything starts shutting down soon?
hmm and things have slowed down. It sounds like you're figuring out ways to list properties, to do virtual tours, and so forth. But with the fall off, um, have you had more downtime, or are you just kind of channeling your efforts in different ways?
Good question. So I've got a 6-year-old that I have 6 days a week. So I've been homeschooling a few hours a day and trying to squeeze in some other projects I have. So I do have a couple properties under contract. So I'm working through those contract deadlines, doing inspections and appraisals and that kind of stuff.
hmm
But I'm trying to use this time to like reorganize my business. Last year I changed companies, and we just got a new client management database. And so I've been trying to put people in there to make sure I've got everyone's contact information, people's birthdays, like all the things that I want to know about them or have about their contact information, that I have that all nice and organized. So
hmm
that's what I'm working on right now, is just the stuff that I know once the market bounces back and once the economy's going again, that I won't have time to do.
Ooh, I don't want to lose this thought, because you do a great Tuesday tips on your social media channels. And I sent the one yesterday to my sister, because she's preparing to close on her first home. And I thought just yesterday's review of different deadlines that you need to hit as you move through the process, from inspection to closing and so forth, was super helpful.
Thank you.
And I'm doing the same thing with my business, just going to things that always get pushed off when you're really busy, but make a difference in terms of business development and just staying in touch with clients as well. Tell me more about homeschooling and some of the other ways that this has impacted your life, apart from your business, but
Yeah.
what's going on at home?
So I'm homeschooling, and I never wanted to be a teacher. I
Me
never wanted
neither.
to be a stay-at-home mom. And I think the amount of like, and I only have one child. And so many moms out there have multiple children, and they're homeschooling multiple children and or have stayed home. And I give those moms big props, because it's hard to step into that teacher role. And so our first week was last week, and we had some challenges, mostly around writing. For whatever reason, I'm not very good at teaching her writing skills. Math and reading are good, but the writing has been our biggest hurdle. So that's impacted me. And then I'm a people person. So, and I'm an affectionate, like touchy person. And so I can't touch people right now. I can't give people hugs. Like if I see you across the fence, Jen, I can't like give you a hug like so that's like really
That's all right. I know you. I know that the spirit is there.
yeah, that's really hard for me. And I also teach fitness classes. So I am still teaching one cycling class a week on Zoom, like a virtual cycling class, but I get so much energy by teaching. It makes no sense, but like by being up in front of a group of people, teaching group fitness, it gives me so much energy back and positivity in my life. So that part has been hard.
I'm glad you brought up fitness because I want to change gears here and mention your marathon training. So you achieved a lifelong goal of qualifying for the Boston Marathon, and you were set to go and run the race. And I think the original race was April 20th.
Yes.
And now it's been postponed until September. Fingers crossed that you'll get to run then.
Yeah.
But this came after a lot of long runs during very cold months here in Colorado.
Yep.
So how did you deal with that setback?
Well, so honestly, when you first asked me how the coronavirus has affected my business, I was more like, I feel more affected about it because of my race, still more because of my race, because it's taken so much time and physical energy and discipline to first qualify for Boston, run that race, qualify, and then got in. And then I did 3 months of training in the cold weather. So like that part has been a big disappointment, I guess. But it's, again, something that's out of my control. And so all I can hope for is that I got stronger in those last 3 months of training. And this was my first training cycle. I did 3 out of my 4 months of training. And this is my first marathon training cycle I've ever done where I didn't have any little injuries, like nothing was nagging at me body wise. And so maybe that was enough to get me to get to a place where I'm like, you know what, I can do a marathon training cycle and not get injured, and I can feel good, and I can train at a certain pace. And then I also, in this last training cycle, made some really good new friends that I didn't have before. Some different girls that I met through mutual friends that now I'm running with all the time. So that's another blessing, even though I'm not running the race like I was planning on.
Are you still planning to do it in September? Are you continuing your training?
Yes. So I'm kind of not, I'm still wanting to do my long runs on Sundays, but I'm not following a strict training program, but I'll have to start training again like the beginning of May for a September marathon. So I'm hoping that it happens in September. Or if it doesn't happen in September, I hope they defer us to next year, because there's a whole wave of people. There's been so many races that have been canceled for people that are trying to qualify right now for next year's race that now they're not even able to qualify or run a race to qualify because of all those races. So it's a huge trickle effect happening.
Yeah,
So we'll
definite
see what happens.
long-term effects. Speaking of the longer term, and we're kind of getting to the end of this call, I'd love to hear your forecast for the rest of your year.
So it's hard to plan real estate because you never know when people are going to buy and sell. And sometimes there's months where there's not a whole lot going on, and then there's a couple months where like a ton of stuff happens. What I try to do is do all my daily things that I do, which are making contacts with people, being a resource, doing my Tuesday tips so that I stay top of mind for people that when they think real estate, I want them to think of me. So I'm trying to do all my normal stuff that has always been the foundation of my business. So I'm continuing with my daily activities. But what I expect is, I really believe that we will not be through this until probably at least July. So I would love for us to open back up and have the world rocking again in May, but I just don't see how that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So June and July, June is usually a really strong month for me in real estate. July, I usually slow down. I think everything's going to be a little delayed this year with the virus. And so I'm planning and gearing up to be busy in June, July, and August before school starts. And I think it'll continue into the fall. The only question mark that's always in my mind is on an election year like this. Usually my fourth quarter of any election year, even if it's a midterm election, I'm a little slower that fourth quarter. So just doing my daily things to hope that generates business in the summer and fall is pretty much all I can do at this point. But I do think that we will bounce back. I think we have a really strong economy that just got knocked off a little bit with this virus, but I think that we'll bounce back.
I think regardless of of what happens with the economy and on what timeline, people need to buy and sell homes. And so I think that will be one of the first sectors that we see come back quickly.
Yeah. We still are very much behind on inventory as a country. We're like 5 million household units behind on having enough housing for people. So I don't think we will see like a 2008, 2009 real estate market crash because there is still that need.
It's a good point. Just like, so I have a recruiting business, and in the talent industry, we were operating in such a tight talent market coming into this. I mean, 10 years of job growth and 3.5% unemployment rate, historic 50-year low. So even though this put, this was a hissing flat tire for recruiting, I also believe that, you can't come out of such a tight housing market or tight labor market and go back to zero. Hopefully we're right in those predictions.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brandi, it's been great to talk to you. Lots of amazing insights here. So if people want to check out your Tuesday tips, if they want to talk to you about real estate transactions or what's going on in the market, how should they reach you?
So it's pretty easy. My email is Brandi, Brandi, at Brandi, Brandi, Broadley, Broadley.com. So Brandi at BrandiBroadley.com, or Brandi Broadley on Instagram is where I always post my Tuesday tips. So I'm pretty easy to find on there.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll let you get back to it. Thank you again for talking. And I'll see you around the neighborhood.
Sounds good.
Hopefully you get out for a run today.
Yes.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.